Hi, my name is Damien Mearns, and outside Bilderberg today. My basic complaint about Bilderberg is what it's doing. It's sitting there establishing policy for governments around the planet, and it's turning what you think is your parliaments and your senates into mere administrative units for the policies decided here, and which is basically, as I moan on my poster, it's very similar to the system of the Politburo back in the Soviet Union. Now, the joke part of the poster here was Dennis Healy talking about young politicians meeting wise financiers. He said that before the credit crunch, and now there's no such thing as a wise financier. Never was. They didn't know a CDO from an ABC. But the question, jokes aside, you don't say, oh, there's a clever politician either. And the whole point of the organic governance systems we've grown up for centuries in the West is we actually expect our politicians to be a bit dumb, and we expect our financiers to be a bit dumb and a bit corrupt as well, because if you want to go into power, you usually have something slightly power about you. And so what we do is to make it work for everybody. We have massive amounts of controls on there. Everything you say in the House of Commons is taken down. We know on the share registry, we know what your interests are. In America, the president has to put all his investments in blind trusts, so even subconsciously he can't make laws which might benefit himself. And what these guys are doing is they're saying, oh, let's have some politicians meet the businessmen and finally get to know what's going on here. We have systems already set up for businessmen to come down to the House of Commons, sit in select committee rooms, go through the standard lobbying processes, and have a very good chat to the politicians and tell them what their view is and where they're up to. And the thing about that is, that's all noted down, that's all got the normal standard controls in. And even with all those controls in, still the politicians are flying off on dodgy holidays here and there and everywhere. And what's happening when they do that kind of stuff is they're giving contracts or making laws benefiting a company when it's for their own small little benefit themselves, and that's causing a misallocation of resources, which is the basic fundamental problem of the classic problem during the Soviet Union, the misallocation of all the resources they had. So when you had politicians who'll drive up here thinking, we're in the middle of a crisis, we need to we need to speak to the big boys here and find out what's going on. The problem is, there's lots of people in Soviet times in the Politburo going to the Politburo and going to want to feed the peasants. They weren't able to do so, even if they had a good heart and they wanted to, because the whole system they designed has no controls, no checks, no balances on, and will always end in a disaster. You couldn't run a sweet shop using a sort of a basic counts package which didn't have any controls and checks and balances on it, because the moment you leave some numbers flying around without any controls and checks and balances on it, you end up with the wrong numbers and the wrong answers and disasters and crises. These guys up here are doing something. Politicians and businessmen are having a chat here for 3 days behind closed doors. They're doing something they're not allowed to do in the House of Commons. They're doing something they're not allowed to do in the US Congress, and the results of that are going to be a disaster. Some of the results we've heard about, leaks over the years, all those constant re-referendums that they've been forcing nations to take when they said anything no to Europe, that's ended up in the situation where the euro is all over Europe at the moment, and there's families in Greece who are taking their kids into orphanages because they can't feed them in 2013 in Western Europe. And that's caused by, well, not so much the people in Bilderberg, but the actual system that they've set up. They might have even had a really good, the euro might not be there for, their benefit somehow, in some way or other. They might have thought it was a very good idea for everybody, but because they've shortchanged the natural process of the democratic situation, they've ended up with a very bad result, and now there's kids in orphanages in Greece because of what's happening, because of Bilderberg. And we need to get rid of it. If businessmen want to speak to politicians, go to the House of Commons, go through the natural lobbying system, and let's do it that way.